Barbie, the perfect smile, the perfect home, the perfect American dream in plastic. Yet this icon of children's playrooms wasn't born in California, but in the tobacco shops of post-war Germany. Her prototype, a doll named Lilli, was a racy gift for adult men, a joke hung from rearview mirrors as a frivolous mascot. In 1950s Hamburg bars, she sat on counters next to ashtrays, while truck drivers affixed her to their dashboards where she swayed with every bump in the road. The central question of our investigation is this: how did a toy with such a questionable past not only find its way into children's rooms, but also become a major cultural symbol of America? This inquiry will reveal precisely how this unthinkable transformation occurred and who was behind it. Two main questions underpin this story. The first paradox: why did the German Lilli doll, created for men, utterly fail with its target audience, while its nearly identical copy, Barbie, became the most successful girls' toy in history? We will unveil the answer to this question of brilliant marketing in Section 5. The second, more pressing question: how did Mattel manage to build a multi-billion-dollar empire on a doll they didn't invent, then legally and completely erase the original from history so that no one would know the truth? The details of this corporate maneuver will culminate our investigation in Section 7. The true, untold story of the brand is hidden within these answers. Mattel's official legend reads like a fairy tale. Ruth Handler, co-founder of the company, observes her daughter Barbara and realizes that girls want to play with adult women, not baby dolls. This is a beautiful, marketing-friendly version, but it's only part of the truth. By the end of this video, you will forget that fairy tale. The real story is a documentary thriller about corporate espionage, deliberate intellectual property theft, and ultimately, a perfect marketing assassination that covered all tracks. You thought you knew Barbie's story, but now you will see her true, ruthless face. Our investigation will proceed through three key stages: the birth of the prototype, the battle for the idea, and the destruction of evidence. In just 3 minutes, we will transport you to the bars and tobacco shops of post-war Germany to witness how a scandalous newspaper caricature of a femme fatale transformed into a physical doll for adults. 8 minutes later, you will observe the fierce battle waged by one woman, Ruth Handler, against Mattel's all-male board of directors, who deemed her idea immoral and a failure. And in 18 minutes, we will uncover the details of a secret legal war and reveal the precise move that allowed Mattel to permanently bury Barbie's past and her German origin. We begin in 1950s Germany. How did a newspaper caricature character, known for sharp adult humor, suddenly become a three-dimensional doll? It all began on June 24, 1952. Cartoonist Reinhard Beuthein created Lilli as a filler for empty space in the Bild newspaper. She was a quick-witted, independent blonde who rebuffed wealthy suitors. At first glance, the doll seemed merely a souvenir. But the reality was far more specific. The doll wasn't sold in toy stores. Her place was in tobacco shops and bars. She became a popular gift at bachelor parties, a risqué joke for the rearview mirror. And here's the crucial point, men: her target audience didn't take her seriously. The doll was a commercial failure. This flop could have been the end of her story, but it actually opened up an entirely different destiny for her. The key to her future lay not in for whom she was created, but in how she was made. What compelled designers to give Lilli such an exaggerated figure and provocative gaze? The obvious answer: it was a literal transfer of a two-dimensional caricature into a three-dimensional world. Artists simply retained all the grotesque features of the original, including her prominent bust and unnaturally thin waist. It was a technical task, devoid of deeper meaning. Yet something more significant lay behind it. Lilli wasn't just a doll. She was a symbol of the new, economically and sexually liberated woman in post-war Germany. Her figure acted as a lightning rod, attracting all social anxieties and debates about women's roles. Her image simultaneously attracted and intimidated men. And here's the central paradox: this non-childlike anatomy, which caused her failure in Germany, would become the key to a revolution in the American children's market. The detail that Germans considered a mistake turned out to be her greatest asset. The real reason for her salvation lay in the reaction of those for whom she was never intended. The facts defy logic. How did a doll created for men, and a resounding failure among them, suddenly begin to find its way to children? The reason for her failure with the target audience was simple. They saw her only as a temporary joke, a trinket, not a collectible item. She lacked a story or an ecosystem, making her a disposable amusement. But sales figures began to show an anomaly. Despite her positioning, mothers started buying the doll for their daughters. The reason was pragmatic. She was the only doll with an adult figure that could wear fashionable clothes, unlike baby dolls. Up to 5% of all Lilli sales came from this unexpected segment. This observation essentially became free market research, proving girls want to play at adult life. But most strikingly, this discovery wasn't made in Germany. The next step in this story will take us from a German tobacco shop to a Swiss storefront, where a fateful encounter will occur. Thus, a revolutionary doll was born in Germany, but its creators failed to grasp its true potential. She was too adult for children and too toy-like for adults. A commercial dead end awaited her. But while Lilli gathered dust on German shop shelves thousands of miles away in America, one woman, the co-founder of Mattel, was obsessed with an idea rejected by her entire board of directors. She sought a way to create a doll with an adult figure, so girls could play at their future, not just at motherhood. She was searching for Lilli, without even knowing it. In the next section, we will see how one woman's personal obsession collided with her accidental discovery, and how that moment changed the world of toys forever. Why was Ruth Handler so obsessed with the idea of an adult-figured doll when the entire market was flooded with baby dolls? Her idea wasn't born from business calculations, but from personal observation. Ruth saw how her daughter Barbara and her friends ignored baby dolls. Instead, they cut out pictures of models and actresses from magazines, creating paper dolls through which they acted out adult life scenarios. This wasn't just an idea, it was the beginning of her personal war. She repeatedly proposed this concept to her husband Elliot and Mattel's board of directors. Each time, the male executives rejected it, deeming the idea strange and commercially unviable. For Ruth, it became a crusade to prove that a woman understood the girls' market better than men. She lacked only one thing: physical proof that such a doll could exist, and she would soon find it. In the summer of 1956, the Handler family went on vacation to Switzerland. It was a trip for leisure, not business. Ruth's idea was on hold, stalled by resistance within the company. But while strolling through Lucerne, she paused before a shop window. Amidst Swiss watches and souvenirs, she saw what had existed only in her imagination for years. It was a moment of shock and triumph. Before her stood a Lilli doll, the physical embodiment of her rejected idea. She realized she wasn't crazy, and that it was possible. Her reaction was immediate and decisive. She bought 3 dolls at once, one for her daughter Barbara, and 2 others intended for Mattel engineers. At that moment, the vacation ended. Returning to the U.S., she brought back not a souvenir, but a weapon for battle in the boardroom. What exactly did Ruth Handler see in Lilli that her German creators missed? She looked at a racy gift for men and saw a tool for dreams. She understood that an adult-figured doll would allow girls not just to play mommy, but to imagine themselves as anyone: a doctor, a flight attendant, a model. But her insight was deeper. Ruth immediately recognized a revolutionary business model: to sell not just a toy, but an endless array of outfits and accessories, creating an entire ecosystem of continuous revenue. For Lilli's German creators, she was a key to a box of jokes. For Ruth, she was a master key, opening doors to dozens of rooms filled with different professions. Upon her return, she immediately devised a new legend for the doll. Thus, Barbara Millicent Roberts, teenage fashion model, was born. But first, she had to convince those who were vehemently opposed. So, Ruth found her holy grail in a Swiss shop window. She no longer had an abstract idea. She had a real prototype proving that such a doll could be created and be commercially appealing. But bringing the doll to America was easy. Selling this idea to her male colleagues, who had already rejected it, was an almost impossible task. The Lilli doll became both her strongest argument and her biggest problem due to its questionable origins. It was a confrontation between one woman's intuition and the cold, conservative logic of an entire board of directors. Now she had to enter the boardroom and begin a war upon whose outcome everything depended. Entering the room, Ruth was met with a wall of male skepticism. Why did the board of directors, composed of successful businessmen, unanimously reject an idea that would bring them billions? On the surface, their argument sounded logical. Producing such a doll would be too expensive, and its adult figure would deter parents. Their main thesis, which became almost a death sentence, was, no mother will ever buy her daughter a doll with breasts. But the reality was deeper. This wasn't a business dispute, it was a direct manifestation of 1950s sexism. The all-male board simply couldn't believe that a female executive understood the girls' market better than they did. They saw it not as a business case, but as a woman's whim. One director even called the idea immoral. Ruth was alone against everyone. To win, she had to change the rules of the game. Faced with complete rejection, Ruth changed tactics. First, she commissioned market research. The results showed that mothers weren't opposed to the idea, and their daughters were thrilled. But the board of directors ignored even these figures, deeming them unreliable. Then Ruth took an enormous risk. She used her position and invested a significant portion of the company's annual budget into developing an American prototype in Japan without final approval. Her actions were akin to diverting a river. As long as it was just an idea, it could be stopped. But once she unleashed a torrent of money and resources, it became impossible to turn back. Ultimately, she presented the board with a fait accompli. The project had gone too far. The first battle was won, but the main test awaited: the market. The moment of truth arrived at the New York Toy Fair in 1959. Barbie was presented for the first time at the Mattel booth. Ruth's reputation and vast sums of money were on the line. The reaction was catastrophic. Wholesale buyers, Mattel's key clients, completely ignored the booth. They deemed the doll too risky and strange. The project Ruth had so painstakingly pushed through was on the verge of complete and humiliating failure. At the fair on March 9th, Mattel received not a single order for Barbie. But Ruth did something that changed the rules of the game forever. She launched the first ever television advertisement for toys, targeting not buyers, but children directly through the popular Mickey Mouse Club show. By the end of the year, over 350,000 dolls had been sold. This explains why creating a true American icon required doing more than just copying a doll. Thus, Ruth Handler won two crucial battles. First, in the boardroom, forcing the board of directors to accept her vision. Then, in the market, bypassing retailer resistance with revolutionary advertising. Barbie became a hit. But now that the doll was popular, a new, even more serious threat emerged. The more famous Barbie became, the higher the risk that someone would discover her striking resemblance to the German adult doll, Lilli. To transform Barbie into a purebred American icon, Mattel needed to perform plastic surgery not on the doll itself, but on her biography. In the next section, we will detail what exactly Mattel changed and what they brazenly copied, and how this brought them to the brink of legal catastrophe. To transform the scandalous German doll into an American icon, Mattel didn't develop it. They performed a cosmetic makeover. Designers slightly softened the makeup, making it less provocative, altered the eyebrow line to appear more naive, and used a different, cheaper type of plastic. It was a change of cosmetics, but the skeleton remained the same. Patent documents show 90% of the design, including the unique figure, body proportions, and even the joint articulation, were a direct copy of Lilli. Mattel knew the design was protected by patents held by the German company O&M Hauser and deliberately proceeded with infringement. Here's direct proof. Barbie's first outfits were virtually identical to Lilli's original ensembles. The real transformation didn't happen on the drawing board, but in the marketing department. It was there that the doll was given a new identity from scratch. She received a full name, Barbara Millicent Roberts. A hometown was invented for her, the fictional Willows, Wisconsin. She was given a profession, teenage fashion model. Then, an entire universe was built around her, parents, sisters, and, of course, her boyfriend, Ken. This was a revolution. Ruth Handler was not selling a plastic figurine, but the American dream in miniature, an aspirational lifestyle. Girls weren't buying a toy, they were buying the chance to try on an ideal future. It was the first time in history that a product received such a meticulously crafted biography, transforming from a commodity into a cultural phenomenon. But while a legend was being born in America, Germany was preparing for war. The German manufacturers at O&M Hauser were not content to silently watch their invention conquer the world under a different name. Initially, there was confusion. They attempted to negotiate, but Mattel simply ignored their claims. When Barbie's sales soared, German patience ran out. In 1961, they sued Mattel for patent infringement. Legal analysis indicated they had every chance of winning, and this posed a direct threat to Mattel's entire empire. Losing in court would mean more than just a colossal fine. It would be a public admission that the entire brand legend was a lie and its flagship product a theft. This could destroy everything. So, Barbie was born through minimal changes and maximal marketing, but her existence was under direct threat due to a lawsuit from her true creators. Mattel had two paths: defend themselves in court, risking a loss, or silence the plaintiff forever. They chose the latter. In the midst of the legal battle in 1964, Mattel made a move that shocked everyone. They bought all patents and copyrights for the Lilli doll for just $21,600. This was the cost of 2 average American cars at the time. To save their empire, Mattel decided not just to win the war, they decided to buy and destroy the enemy. But how exactly did Mattel create this indestructible American myth? After the failure at the 1959 Toy Fair, when market professionals rejected Barbie, the doll suddenly became a hit. The answer seems simple: television advertising. Mattel became a pioneer, sponsoring the hugely popular Mickey Mouse Club, and, for the first time in history, targeting advertising not at parents, but directly at children. But this wasn't just an ad campaign, it was total media warfare. Mattel spent more on airtime than any other toy company, creating continuous hypnotic demand. Children demanded Barbie, parents pressured stores, and retailers were forced to stock the doll they had initially rejected. This strategy worked like changing a river's course. Instead of flowing downstream through retailers, Mattel carved a powerful channel directly to children, and the pressure of this new current forced the main channel to comply. Thus, a simple doll became a cultural symbol as influential as Coca-Cola. On the surface, the reason is obvious: Barbie was always on the cutting edge of progress. Astronaut Barbie appeared in 1965, 4 years before man landed on the moon. Businesswoman Barbie emerged during the height of the fight for equal pay. But the numbers dismantle this ideal picture. Each new dream was an occasion for a new purchase. In the first 3 years, over 20 career sets were created. Each profession meant not just a doll, but an entire world of accessories and outfits. Barbie became the perfect tool for promoting American consumerism, where success is measured by consumption. While America exported this gleaming myth, a skeleton remained in its closet at home, and that skeleton was preparing to sue. Each new profession was not merely a reflection of the times, but a deliberate blow designed to bury a questionable past. Her first role, teenage fashion model, was a compromise. She retained an adult figure and fashion appeal, but shifted the focus from seduction to high style. This was a cautious first step in reputation laundering, but subsequent steps were far more aggressive. In short order, a kaleidoscope of respectable professions appeared: flight attendant, nurse, ballerina. The more roles Barbie had, the more absurd her connection to a German doll for men seemed. This strategy was like fresh snowfall, layer by layer covering old, dirty tracks. Each new profession was another nail in Lilli's coffin. The real war for Barbie's soul was fought, not in courts, but on toy boxes. By the time the German manufacturers filed their lawsuit, the truth about Barbie's origins had already drowned in myth. How did this happen? Mattel established total control over information. The legend of Ruth Handler and her daughter Barbara was disseminated everywhere, on boxes, in advertisements, in fan clubs. They broadcasted the fabricated biography 24 hours a day until it became canon. And here's the shocking contrast. At the very time Barbie was receiving awards as the ideal American toy, O&M Hauser's lawyers were preparing a patent infringement lawsuit with irrefutable evidence. By 1963, over 3 million Barbie dolls had been sold. The myth seemed an impenetrable wall. But this wall had one vulnerability, a living witness to the crime. A ghost named Lilli still existed, and she demanded justice. The marketing war was won, but a true battle, upon which everything depended, lay ahead. How was Mattel going to win in court if the patents, the Lilli doll itself, and all the evidence were undeniably against them? The corporation was heading towards victory in a case it was legally doomed to lose. Their plan was ingenious in its cruelty. First, they launched a war of attrition. Their lawyers buried the German company O&M Hauser with endless motions, aiming simply to bankrupt the plaintiff before a verdict could be reached. But then, Mattel's lawyers made a move that transformed the legal process into a corporate thriller. They approached O&M Hauser with an offer. It wasn't a settlement proposal for the lawsuit. It was something far more radical. Mattel offered to buy not just the patent, but to acquire the competitor company entirely. This was merely the first step of their final plan. Why did Mattel go so far as to buy an entire company, risking millions, when they could have settled the lawsuit for less? They weren't paying for peace, but for the right to destroy. Any settlement would have left the Lilli doll on the market. She would have forever remained the real Barbie, the original, which would have been a reputational disaster for Mattel. But figures from the archives shatter this picture. The 1964 deal was total. Mattel acquired all patents, all copyrights, all molds, and all production drawings related to the Lilli doll. And here was the final blow. The new owner's very first directive was an order for the immediate and complete cessation of Lilli's production, forever. It was akin to buying the sole copy of a compromising document with the single purpose of throwing it into the fire. They destroyed the doll, but the fate of the company that created her was even more brutal. What became of O&M Hauser, the German company that challenged the American giant? The official version appeared to be a standard transaction. Exhausted by the lawsuit, O&M Hauser accepted the offer. In the newspapers, it looked like a typical merger. But it wasn't a merger, it was a liquidation. Having lost the rights to its flagship product, O&M Hauser lost its reason for existence. Their business model was shattered. The company, which had survived 2 world wars, could not survive its encounter with Mattel and soon declared bankruptcy. Mattel didn't just win in court, it erased its opponent from the business map. Now the myth of Barbie, born in Wisconsin, was protected by the graveyard silence of her German prototype and its creators. The original was dead and buried. Why did this shocking story remain hidden for so long? By purchasing all rights, Mattel gained the legal ability to suppress any mention of Lilli as a prototype. They owned the history. Anyone attempting to tell the truth would face their army of lawyers. But complete obliteration is impossible. The truth survived thanks to 3 sources Mattel couldn't control: court records, surviving dolls, collectible rarities, and the memories of former employees. The evidence didn't vanish. It was simply buried very deep. Mattel committed the perfect corporate crime, paying for silence and the right to lie. The crime is revealed, the evidence found. But the main question remains: whose legacy ultimately proved more significant? The ingenious creators or her forgotten prototypes? The Barbie phenomenon was not born from a single stroke of genius, but from a unique confluence of circumstances. It was a chain reaction. Without the audacious German caricature and its physical embodiment, there would have been no spark. Without Ruth Handler's fateful trip to Switzerland, that spark would have died in a shop window. Without the fierce resistance from the all-male board of directors, Ruth would not have had to hone her concept to perfection and invent revolutionary advertising. Without the brilliant marketing transformation, a scandalous artifact would never have become a family value. And finally, without the cold legal aggression that wiped the original off the face of the earth, this gleaming myth could not have survived. Each of these factors was absolutely essential. We have dissected how the legend was created, but the irony of fate caught up with everyone behind it. In the story's finale, fate arranged everything with cruel irony. Ruth Handler, the visionary and empire builder, was, at the peak of her success, cast out of the paradise she herself had constructed. In 1978, she was forced to resign from Mattel due to accusations of financial irregularities. Meanwhile, her creation, Barbie, continued her triumphant march, becoming an immortal icon, forever separated from her disgraced creator. And what of Lilli? Destroyed and forgotten, she transformed into her own ghost. Today, original 1950s Lilli dolls sell at auctions for thousands of dollars. They have become priceless artifacts, silent witnesses that preserve the memory of the true cost of a legend. All the characters have taken their places in history, and now we can give direct answers to the main questions posed at the very beginning. So why did Barbie, an almost exact copy, become a global phenomenon while her prototype Lilli failed and was forgotten? Because Ruth Handler didn't change the doll, she changed its story. Lilli was merely a souvenir, a racy joke with no future. Barbie sold not plastic, but a dream of endless possibilities. And the second question, how did Mattel manage to so cleanly erase Lilli from history? They didn't erase her, they bought and buried her. Mattel acquired all patents and rights not to own the original, but to guarantee its complete and eternal disappearance. These two answers are inextricably linked. For the new, American story of Barbie to live, the old German story of Lilli had to die. It was a brilliant symbiosis of marketing vision and corporate ruthlessness. Now that you know the full truth, what do you think played the decisive role? This story presents us with a choice between two forces. On one side, Ruth Handler's ingenious intuition, a woman who saw a revolutionary toy for girls and a doll made for men, went against everyone and created a new industry. This is a story of courage and breakthrough. On the other side, a cold and cynical corporate takeover, without legal aggression, the destruction of a competitor, and the erasure of truth from history, the Barbie myth likely wouldn't have survived. This is a story of power and ruthlessness, where the ends justify the means. So what ultimately determined Barbie's phenomenal success? What was the decisive factor in this story? In the comments, write just one word that you believe is the key to this story: vision or takeover. Let's see what verdict history will render.